66-day habit rule came from 39 people rating their own feelings, and Johns Hopkins watched the brain flip into a habit inside 5 trials. So I'm going to show you the switch and what trips it. Shar, Len Moore is running mice on a sound task. They look expert after 1,400 tries. The switch does not fire until try 3,800, 2,400 tries, past the point Moore could have closed the study. Nothing changes on Moore's end. The mouse just stops deciding. 2 very different studies are hiding behind that 66. One asked people on a website every night how automatic their new habit felt. The other sat in a dark room and watched a brain change its mind. Only one of those is measuring a habit. And the difference between them is why your last 3 habits fell apart. The switch has a condition on it, and the condition is not time. Phil IAP Lal E wanted a real number, so she ran her study out in the world instead of a lab. At University College London, she signed up 96 people. Each one picked a small daily thing, a piece of fruit with lunch, a bottle of water, a 15-minute run, and tied it to something that already happened every day. Then, for 12 weeks, every night, they logged onto a website and scored how automatic it had started to feel. Did you do it without thinking? Would it be hard not to do it? That is the whole measurement. Not a brain scan. A person at the end of a long day, guessing at their own head. Try scoring your own honesty at 11 at night. Lal E took each person's nightly scores and drew a curve through them. The curve she used climbs fast and then flattens out. The shape psychologists have assumed habits follow, since Clark Hall sketched it in the 1940s. Then she read off the day each curve stopped climbing. The middle of that pile was 66 days. The lowest was 18. The highest was 254, 8 months wide. Lal E put that spread in her paper, and it did not travel. Neither did the rest of what she found. That 254 was never measured because that person never got there inside the study. For that one person, the curve never stopped climbing, so the model guessed they would get there 8 months later. And the curve itself had trouble. 96 people signed up. 82 sent in enough data to use. Her curve fit 39 of them. 39. Fewer than half the people who finished her study made the shape the number is built on. 5 of them barely moved across all 12 weeks. 5 more climbed in a straight line that never flattened at all, so there was no day to read off. 66 days is the middle of 39 people who agreed to look like a curve. Rating their own feelings, mostly students, mostly drinking water, Lal E wrote every bit of that down in plain English in the paper. It got smoothed away on the way to the internet. What traveled was the number on its own, and the man who carried it furthest was James Clear, who deserves better than the blame for that. He is a large reason people stopped saying 21 days. He traced that one back to Maxwell Maltz, a plastic surgeon writing in 1960, who said it took about 21 days for a patient to get used to a new face. Minimum of about, Maltz wrote. Somebody dropped the minimum and the about. Clear called that out. Then, he handed people Lal E's number and wrote, "To be exact, I have quoted 66 on this channel myself. It is the most careful number in the field. That is the problem. But there is a problem underneath Lal E's curve that has nothing to do with the Lal E, and Randy Gallistel found it years before she ran her study. Gallistel went back through the classic learning experiments, pigeons and rabbits and rats and mice in water mazes, and pulled the individual animals out of the group data. The group curve in every textbook rises smoothly, the individuals did not. He wrote it flat. The gradually increasing learning curve is an artifact of group averaging. Picture 10 people in a dark room, each with a light switch, each flipping it at a different minute. Every switch is instant. Film the room and measure the brightness, and you get a slow, smooth sunrise. That sunrise is real in the data, and IT happened to nobody. Every curve you have ever seen of a skill building up could be that room, which is why Clark Hall's question was still open, 80 years after he asked it. Is this transition abrupt, he wrote in 1943, or is it gradual and progressive? The textbooks answered gradual. Gallistel's point is that none of them had watched one individual cross over. They could not. The standard test is a single session run on a whole group at once. You get a snapshot of the crowd. You never see the moment. So how do you catch one animal in the act? Len Moore's answer was to stop motivating them so hard. Standard practice is water restriction. You hold a mouse at about 85% of its body weight, and it works the task because it is thirsty. Moore's restricted mice lost almost 18% of their weight that way, so she left water in the home cage all day instead, with a little citric acid in it. Slightly sour, but it still does the job. Now the mouse is not desperate, it is choosing. Those mice lost under 9%, and that single swap changed what the question was. Not how long a habit takes, what the animal is running on. The mice, working out of preference, flipped into habit 2/3 of the time. The thirsty ones flipped about 1 time in 5. Same task, same tones. Thirst had not been speeding the habit up, it had been sitting on top of it, and it may have been keeping it from happening at all. With the pressure off, the thing thirst had been sitting on showed up. The task was simple, 2 tones. Lick at one and you get 3 microliters of water, about a drop. Hold still at the other, or you wait out a penalty. 300 of those a session, day after day. Nobody would call that a decision. For a while, it was one. Both groups learned it just as fast, and that part matters, because this is not a story about lazy mice. But the relaxed mice did something strange after they had learned it. They wavered. Some stretches they answered every single cue. Other stretches they skipped most of them. Moore's team ran a model over the trial-by-trial data, and it found the animals flipping between 2 modes. In the first mode, they answered 98 times out of 100. In the second, they skipped roughly 2 cues out of 3. Before the switch, a mouse spent about half its trials in each mode. That wavering is what wanting looks like from the outside. A mouse that answers when it feels like it is a mouse that is still deciding. Then the wavering stopped. Not faded, stopped. In most animals, it took under 5 trials, and it usually landed right at the top of a fresh session. They had hit expert level around about 1,400 trials in. The switch came around to trial 3,800, 2,400 trials of looking like they had it before they had it. That stretch is where a person quits. You have probably walked away from something inside it and called it a discipline problem. Moore's team had the same doubt you should be having right now. Answering every time could just mean the mouse got focused, so they ran the one test that separates a habit from a decision. It is called devaluation. Take away the reason and see whether the animal still goes. They gave the mice 10 minutes of free water first, until the mice did not want any more, then ran a short session. An animal that is still deciding does the obvious thing. It stops. Before the switch, that is what happened. The responses collapsed. After the switch, the same mice kept going. Same tone, same lick, for water they had just turned down. Goal-directed means the outcome is steering you. You act because you want the thing at the end. Habitual means the cue is steering you. The tone plays, the body answers, and whether you want it has dropped out of the loop. The mice's eyes said the same thing. When an animal makes a mistake, its pupil jumps, and that flare is the brain noticing it got something wrong. Before the switch, the flare was there. After, it faded. They stopped being surprised by their own errors. Nobody trained that. It arrived with the switch in the same handful of trials. So something turned it on. That is the part Kish or Ku-Chi Botla keeps coming back to. The fact that it is so sudden, he said, implies that something is controlling it. A slope needs nothing to run it. A switch needs a hand on it. So they went looking for the hand. There is a chunk of tissue deep in the brain called the door, solat al striatum, a piece of the old machinery that has been tied to habits for decades. Damaged it on both sides in one group of mice and left another group alone. 60% of the untouched mice made the transition. 20% of the damaged ones did. Take that tissue out and the animal still runs the task. It just never stops deciding. And then the part I did not expect. Some of the mice went back. After stretches in habit mode, they slid into wavering again, into deciding again, and nobody made them. Ku-Chi Botla's read on that is the most useful sentence in the paper. Bad habits, he said, need not be there forever. If a habit is a slope you climbed over 66 days, you are stuck with whatever you built. If it is a switch with a hand on it, the hand works both ways. This question has an answer now, at least in a mouse. Abrupt, not gradual and progressive. So here is what I would do with that, and the leap involved is worth saying out loud. These are mice in a sound booth with about 1 lever's worth of choice. Nobody has run this design on people. There is no human trial count, and anybody who hands you one is doing what Lal-E's 39 did. What the study gives you is not a number. It is a condition, and it starts with how hard you are pushing. Her desperate mice mostly never flipped. Her comfortable ones did. Every January version of you, running on urgency and a deadline and a little self-disgust, is running the water restriction protocol on yourself. Build the thing at a size you would still do on a flat, boring, slightly annoyed day. Do it small enough that a bad mood cannot stop it. Then, count reps, not days. The mice did not flip because time passed. They flipped because the same cube met the same action a few thousand times. 66 days of nothing is still nothing. A month on the calendar is 30 days whether you showed up or not. The count only moves when you do. And a count only means something if the reps match each other, so hold the cue and the room steady. Nothing changed on Moore's end, and that is what let the switch happen. Same tones, same box, same drop of water. Every time you move the workout to a different hour, or the reading to a different chair, you start a new count. And then the move that would have saved most of your habits. Expect the switch to arrive long after you are competent. In the mice, it was 2,400 trials after. Knowing how to do it and still paying for it every time is not the failure state. That is the middle of the road. Day 19 of a 21-day plan is not near the end of anything. So if you track one thing, do not track a streak. Once a week, ask yourself whether you still had to decide. That is the variable that moves. Lali was measuring the right thing, she just averaged it, and an average is how 10 instant light switch flips turn into one slow sunrise. Moore never averaged anything. She sits in a booth with one mouse that has run the same task 3,800 times, and she changes nothing. Same tones, same water, nothing changes on Moore's end, and the animal crosses over anyway, in about 4 tries, into a version of itself that has stopped asking whether it wants to. That is the thing you have been trying to build with a calendar. The number I want does not exist yet. Nobody has run this on humans, and until somebody does, the honest answer to how long does it take is that it was never a how long question. When that study lands, I will read it and bring it back here. Subscribe if you would rather have the correction than the headline. Till then, pick the smallest version of the thing, put it in the same place, and stop counting days.